You're listening to the Patriot Nation podcast.
Welcome into another edition of the Patriot Nation podcast, of course, brought to you by Prize Picks and Game Time. If you download Prize Picks, put in the promo code CLNS, and you'll get $20. They'll match your first deposit up to $100. And if Game Time, download that app, put in the promo code CLNS, the same dang promo code, put in the promo code CLNS, and you'll get $20 off your first order. Matt, we're here live. Second intermission, the Bruins somehow are winning 3-1 against the Florida Panthers. Heavy underdogs, the Bruins. A long way to go. But if they win game one, that would be very nice.
Here's all I can think of is the last time they defeated a hated division rival in 7 games in the first round and then played a team on a quick turnaround that they blew an embarrassing series lead to in the second round. It was when they swept the Flyers in 2011. So off to a hot start tonight. You know, you got the skating Cajun there, Mason Lohrei from Louisiana scoring with a knife. You got dad strength Brandon Carlo scoring a goal.
Absolutely love it.
Period.
Absolutely love it.
Yeah, great game.
No.
If the whole series is like this, it's going to be a ton of fun.
Well, and Lohrei, I think, has been really good since last series. And so this is kind of a continuation for him. He's really come on lately, which is nice, you know. And then we get Patriots back. I don't know if it'll be this series or, you know, if they end up going further, maybe he'll be back at some point. But even if it's next year, you have to kind of look at it and say, like, they got some good young players coming through, which is nice. It's nice to see.
Well, I mean, obviously the season is still going, but you feel like you got the goalie of the future in Swayman. Yep. You got the top 4 of your D-core locked and loaded right now, and you have an elite top level scorer in the NHL in Pastrnak, and you got that combination of things. Finding the pieces to fit in with those gets a lot easier.
100%. And that's what the Patriots are trying to do right now is, kind of do the same thing, right? Get that quarterback, locked in. They've been locking in some of the guys that they drafted and have developed, Mike Onwenu and Kyle Duggar and Anthony Jennings and Mike, the guys like that, where you can look at it and say, okay, we feel good about the direction of this team. And then if we can get some of those pieces in place, if you hit on the quarterback, if you hit on a few wide receivers, now all of a sudden it becomes a lot easier to, handle the rest of the crew.
Yeah. And it's like when you're writing a paper and you start from scratch, and then you figure out, all right, I got like what 2 of my paragraphs or 3 of my paragraphs are going to be about. Exactly. And then, all right, now the introduction paragraphs coming together, and then conclusions coming together, and you know what paragraphs you're adding in between, and everything starts to flow, as what the Patriots are trying to start to do at this point. The problem is you got one paragraph that's way more important than any other paragraph in all of writing, I guess, if I'm going to really continue this analogy at the quarterback position. And, and it is all going to come down to Drake May at the end of the day.
Yep. And it's not, and the thing about Drake May is it's not just Drake May. It's also the coaches and how the coaches coach him up. It's also the general manager and the talent that they surround him with. And it's the players around him as well. And so, of course, he has to put the time and effort in, but then everyone else around them has to do their job. And speaking of the general manager, before we get into the roast of Tom Brady on Netflix on Sunday night, the Patriots have started an official search for essentially GM, basically. And so, I think that's interesting. I think that's really interesting. You look at that situation there, and of course you feel like Elliott Wolf's going to be the guy, but I'm not sure if Elliott Wolf is really going to be the guy or not. We'll see. I think after this draft, you kind of have to look at it and say Elliott Wolf's done quite a bit to make you feel like he is, especially the way he's worked with Gerard Mayo. But you have to go through the motions.
What this feels like to me is that they knew who the next GM was, and they didn't want to go through all the motions and hassle of conducting interviews while they were in the pre-draft process. So they waited for the draft to be over, and now they're going to go through. If you want to make somebody GM officially,
Right.
they were able to make Gerard Mayo head coach because they had written into the contract that he was going to be the successor. They didn't do the same thing with the GM position after Bill Belichick, which means that when you fill that position, you have to interview a bunch of people. It has to be an open process. And I think everybody involved knows that it's going to land on Elliot Wolf. It would be truly shocking if it didn't, and borderline irresponsible of them to let the draft go by and picking your future quarterback with an interim GM.
Right.
That would be, I would have some real questions about what's going on unless I don't even know who it would be, but some GM candidate came out of nowhere and said, I would like this job. And it was the kind of guy you couldn't turn down. I think they're going to go through the motions. It's going to go, week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, however long they need the process to take to make it look real. You interview a bunch of people, and then you come back and you say, yep, Elliot Wolf's our GM, which this would be, I believe, the first time that the Patriots have had an official GM while owned by the Crafts. I could be wrong, but I don't think they had one in the 90s earlier or either.
They did. They had Bobby Greer, I believe. Although Bobby Greer may not have had the official title of
like
GM.
director of player personnel or something like that.
I was thinking under Pete Carroll, but I agree with you. I think that I don't know if they actually were, if he actually had that specific GM title. And again, I don't know if Elliot Wolf will either, or whoever gets that job. I don't know if it's necessarily going to be GM. But if it's not GM, it's GM. I mean, even if that's not the title, that's what's happening. So we'll see.
Yeah.
But all right, let's get into this roast last night. This was, I'll tell you, I had a great time watching it. It was completely wild. Just completely wild. By the way, hello to everyone out there, Old Man Mob saying hello, Berg saying what's up. Blorp thinks we have Jonathan Kraft, so we don't need a GM. And Spectre Des thinks that Judon should be the next GM, which I kind of agree with. Judon, no one works harder than Judon.
Judon, he puts in the work, but he hasn't landed a player yet. So we gotta see the results there.
That's a great point. Also, Last Shinobi with a dynasty question. Listen, I have a dynasty draft going on right now. People think it's too early for fantasy football. It is not too early for fantasy football. Dynasty question: would you take AJ Brown and the 1-2 for Tyreek Hill? MHJ goes number 1. So that means you're getting probably Malik. I assume that this is a 1 QB league, and you're getting Malik Neighbors at 2. Is Malik Neighbors worth Malik Neighbors with AJ Brown? Is that worth Tyreek Hill?
This is tough because you're basically betting here that Malik Neighbors is going to be an elite level receiver, and that Tyreek Hill is probably fading soon and getting right near the end of his career.
Right.
That said, AJ Brown is still really good. So I would, if you could get Marvin Harrison Jr. with this, I would probably consider it. Neighbors, I like him, but I think the floor is low enough, especially with Daniel Jones there, that I wouldn't say no, but I would hesitate at least.
Yeah, maybe try to get something else in there, just something else. Who knows what, but just something else in there. Maybe a 2nd round pick or a 3rd round pick or something like that. If you can get one, maybe for a running back or something like that. Or just ask for a little bit more, but it is probably his QB is Allen. So he's considering Williams as well. I mean, wait, why would you consider Williams if your QB is Allen?
Maybe he's a Patriots fan. He doesn't want Josh Allen as his quarterback.
I mean, that could be the case.
If you're going to do this and get Caleb Williams and then turn around and trade Josh Allen and get another high level receiver, then I think I like what you're cooking.
Yeah. I would agree with that. Yeah. So it's interesting. That's a tough one. I'm in the middle of a draft right now. Actually, there's a draft starting tomorrow too. I'm in way too many dynasty leagues, but it's so much fun. So much fun. If I understand the Allen with no wide receivers, but I just think it's not.
He's gonna get running production.
Yeah, I mean, look at what's his name? What's his face? Mahomes with no quarterback, with no wide receiver.
Well,
Josh Allen's gonna be okay.
Well, even a guy like Trevor Lawrence, who's not as good as Josh Allen and with a much worse situation, has still produced pretty well.
He's gonna put up numbers.
Josh Allen will produce. He'll put up numbers.
He's gonna put up numbers. He may not be number QB1, the QB1, but he's gonna put up numbers this year. I wouldn't worry about it. I certainly wouldn't worry about trading, Tyreek Hill to get Caleb Williams. In my opinion. Yeah. But again, Right. Again, if you're going to turn
It's
around and trade Josh
risky.
Allen.
Yeah, it could work out. It's just very risky because there's a
It is,
world
yeah.
where Caleb Williams is a bust, and now you're in
And
a
now you're stuck.
position,
Right.
where
Right.
you've got pretty bad assets.
Yeah. Yeah. So, I mean, I don't think you can necessarily go wrong, but I almost would feel like I'd keep Allen and then, go from there, see what happens.
Now, if you can do some kind of a trade and get Neighbors, I'm not opposed to that. But if Caleb Williams is going to go at 2, if you can move up to 3, give up less and
right. And still get him.
Neighbors,
Yeah.
that I like.
Yeah, I like that idea too. So, all right,
Yeah.
let's move on to the roast of Brady here. Tom Brady roast last night on Netflix, hosted by Kevin Hart. A ton of people, and for Patriots fans, for Patriots fans that have been around for a long time, this is the exact type of thing. Like, it's so much fun to watch these guys. Drew Bledsoe out there, like, it was awesome. Bledsoe was hysterical, I thought.
He's hilarious.
He was really good. Edelman crushed it. There was some racy jokes out there, man.
Yeah.
Listen, it was Brady dropped a 9/11 joke. Like, it was not for the faint of heart. I'll put it that way. And you see the Comedy Central roasts, but they're PG-13, right? And now this is rated R. Like, you could go hard with this one, and they did. They definitely did.
Yeah, no, it was entertaining. I didn't expect there to be that many people. But yeah, no, it was good. And it's like you said, getting everybody in the same room again is awesome. And I think you could tell, like, it's the classic thing where a lot of these guys know each other well enough to really know how to needle one another with the jokes, but they're also close enough that they can make these jokes and it isn't personal. And it's like, and that was one of the things, going back to like the dynasty in the way that it characterized people. All the relationships in there talks about like professional relationships, and what we saw at the roast is the personal relationships. Those are the real people. That's like the dynasty is showing you at a workplace with your boss where you start having issues or whatever,
right?
And then that's going out for drinks after with them, and things are going well, and you can make jokes and everything,
right?
And it's a different environment. You're different people in that world. So although I did love that Bill cracked a joke about the dynasty, I thought that was fantastic.
That was good.
That was a very good one. There were a lot more jokes about Brady being divorced than I expected going in. But I probably should have expected. I don't know why I didn't expect that. I think Bledsoe had the best one with there's things that I'll have that you'll never have.
So
being
good.
Number 1 or 28th wedding anniversary or whatever it was.
Incredible. Absolutely incredible. Yeah. That was a good one. There was so many good ones. The Nikki Glaser dropping the Bledsoe. So Tom, Bledsoe Tom could something. Drew Bledsoe Tom. I was like, that's gold. That's gold right there. And then there were, some of those jokes, bro. Again, I'm not gonna repeat them on here, but you got to watch it. And Netflix did a nice job of. It's a 3-hour long thing. It was live, but it's still available. And from what I heard, and I don't know this for sure, but from what I heard, they're putting together like a 1-hour compilation. Like,
okay,
I love Randy Moss.
The highlights of it.
I love Randy Moss. He sucked. He was terrible. Randy Moss was terrible. He was awful on there. Ben Affleck could have done without Ben Affleck. He was fine, but could have done without him. Some of these guys. Oh boy. Oh God, pasta.
You're ahead of me on this by quite a bit.
I always am ahead of you on this thing. You're gonna see it and be upset at David.
Yeah, here we go. Oh my goodness, that's twice the Pasta's had a breakaway tonight.
That's
not
bad.
Capitalized. Hey, he got the one last game, so I'm not gonna complain.
Right, that's correct. And obviously, if they win this game, who cares, right? But but you'd like to see him deposit that in the 5-hole right there. It's wide. Look at the 5-hole's wide open. He missed it.
Yeah.
But anyways, but I love how they all plugged their own things. It was great. Bledsoe shouting out double back wine, and they're talking about their specials and everything. It was great. It was fun. Yeah. Belichick, like, that's the one thing people don't understand about Belichick. Belichick can take a joke, man. He can give a joke and he can take a joke. the famous stories with Lenny Clark and how, Lenny went in before the 07 Super Bowl and just ripped him a new one in front of the team to kind of lighten the mood. He does those things and takes shots at himself. He's not self-conscious about that stuff. And I think that's one of those things that gets lost in the shuffle, right? And one of the things I think is hysterical about Bill is that when he makes the joke, he's got this like smile on his face, like he knows it's going to be funny. And you just can't help but laugh when you see him doing that because you're like, that's just hysterical,
When it's that, he knows nobody expects it of him, and he
Right.
knows that's going to make it funnier for himself.
Yeah.
I love that there were multiple Foxborough High jokes too. That's very close. It's with that, you get a sense of what, how often this was a thing behind the scenes. We've heard about it before, but you got all kinds of players making the
Right.
Foxborough High jokes.
Right.
They were good ones. Edelman and Brady with them, I think it was, and they were hysterical.
Well, and I'll tell you what, man. If I were if I went to Foxborough High right now, I'd be like, that's where I go to school. That's where I teach.
Oh, yeah.
That's where you know what I mean?
Yep. When I did think it was funny that it was like Belichick could take a joke really well. Gronk, obviously. Honestly, in some ways, I think Gronk is like most comfortable being the butt of the joke.
Oh,
in
yeah.
some ways.
Gronk was about a joke all night.
Yeah. And then you got Brady over there, clearly trying to be as nonchalant as he can, and also still very uncomfortable with it. And it's like you can tell it's just that not calculated.
Oh yeah.
But he's just like, how do I be normal about it?
He was good. I thought he was a good sport.
It was perfect.
Yeah.
And that's what you want out of a roast. Where it's like he's good natured, he could take it, he dishes it out a little at the end, but he's a little bit uncomfortable in there.
You know who didn't take it well? Danny Amendola did not appreciate Bill Belichick going after him. What did he get? 200 yards in 2014 and another 250 in 2016. It was great.
Good first.
Randy Moss is a good first half of Randy Moss. It's like this incredible, he's been waiting for that one,
It's funny now that there's now not one but two of those little slot receivers who Bill has been maybe not on the best terms with Bill,
right?
Which it's funny too because if we think about Bill Belichick's legacy on offense, it's the slot receiver and being able to take random guys and put him in that position and have multiple guys be in that role and be on bad terms with him. It's really funny how the world works.
Yeah.
It's only Edelman who has survived that for now.
It's true. It's very true. And he always will, in my opinion. Will Ferrell almost broke character halfway through. Like, it was good. It was funny. The Ron Burgundy thing for me is like kind of overplayed, but it's funny. I mean, it is funny, but it's just, yeah, I thought it was very well done. Again, if you're kind of ranking them, I would say Nikki Glazer, that Timmy or Tommy or Tummy or whatever the dude's name was that does the live podcast or something. He was pretty good. That was pretty good. Where he went down the line and roasted everyone. I noticed they didn't roast Tom Segura. I'm like, it's interesting. He roasted every single person except for Tom. I'm like, that's interesting. Okay. It's a handshake agreement with Tom Segura there. But and it's funny because nobody said a word about Segura. Like everyone crapped all over. Yeah, Tony Hinchcliffe, thank you. Everyone crapped all over Bert, but no one said a thing about Tom Segura. And I thought that was interesting. I wonder if it's like, I think it's interesting that, why is it that no one went after him and everyone?
Now we're getting into the social dynamics of the comedy scene in 2024. This is above my pay grade.
By the way, I thought they were terrible. I thought they were awful.
Yeah, I
didn't get it.
I was most nervous for how many athletes were at this because I was like, if you want to do a real roast, you want as many like true comedians as possible. But then by the end, it really felt like it was the people that knew Brady best and knew the Patriots best that were delivering the best lines by and large.
And of course, I mean, let's be honest. Of course, the vast majority of those jokes were written by comedians, right?
Sure.
And, so obviously they didn't write a lot of their own material, but still, it's one of those things. And Blorp's right. Like, Matt Light's hysterical. But I also think, like, he doesn't get a microphone because he's not a big enough name, in my opinion.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like Gronk.
If they were doing this, if this were hosted on Nessun, Matt
Right.
Light, 100% gets
100%,
one.
right? But he's
Yeah.
just not a big enough name. People are like, "Who the hell is this guy?" You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And even Drew Bledsoe, who again was the number one pick, highest paid player in NFL history at the time, right? Everyone knows that Brady replaced Bledsoe. Even him kind of feels like, well, like I don't know. You know what I mean? He's certainly not as big of a star as a guy like Edelman or Gronk is. So.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
I thought it was very well done. And again, like you say, the comedians were good. I thought the
Nikki Glaser
athletes
was
were even better.
outstanding. I just want to make sure I said that she was awesome.
Who
in
was?
a lot of ways, that's the Nikki Glaser.
Oh yeah, yeah.
And it in a lot of ways, it almost felt like the kind of thing that you would like have happen in the middle of training camp.
Right.
One of those nights to like break the tension. Like this feels like the kind of thing where one of the coaches would say, "Hey, we're gonna get the players together and do a little roast because we're 2 weeks in a training camp and everybody's beating each other up and we need to lighten the mood and get guys comfortable with one another and everything," or that type of thing. And it was that raunchy, almost locker room environment in a good way, in a funny way, not in some like over the top thing. And that's where it's kind of fun because it also the fact that so many of the digs were by people who know Tom Brady, like it's his teammates and stuff.
Yeah.
It does make you feel like, hey, we're in on the whatever joke they've had in the locker room, whatever joke they've had in the group chat for a while now.
Well, 100%, and especially where for us, like there are players. You know what I mean? It's a different situation than let's go.
You're spoiling it for me
so
here.
Hard. I tried not to. I tried really hard not to. I'm sorry. It's a different situation than if it were, the roast of Peyton Manning. I mean, speaking of no names, like Mason Lorai, and no offense to Brandon Carlo, but like Geeky, Lorai, Carlo, and Brazo are the 4 goals tonight. Like, if you had picked those 4 as your 4 goal scorers for the Bruins, you would have won $1 billion tonight. Like,
yeah, fantastic.
No chance, right?
The Bruins get away with a high stick in there.
I don't know.
I saw one of the replays, but it's hilarious that David Pastrnak has had 2 breakaways tonight, hasn't scored on either, but Johnny Brazeau gets 1 and scores.
Unbelievable.
Shout out Brazeau.
Yeah, there you go, Justin.
Obviously, we're doing this podcast. I'm a football guy through and through. That's my number one, but playoff hockey is
hockey's great. Playoff hockey's great. Playoff basketball is also a lot of fun. But there's just something about playoff hockey for me that, I'm not really a huge Bruins fan during the year, but in the playoffs, man, you live and die with it almost, you feel like,
Oh, yeah. Especially, 7-game series goes to overtime.
Yeah. Yeah. It's awesome.
That'll, which by the way, it was funny. I had my birthday was last week. I had people down to just celebrate and everything on Saturday, and we had to change all of our plans around the Bruins game because, of course, they couldn't finish it and it had to go to 7.
Yeah.
So instead of for my birthday, it's my buddies and we're gonna go out to the bar. It's my friends and I nervously sitting around my apartment watching an overtime hockey game, but it's a win, so we ride on.
Oh, it's so good.
But back to the roast. I really loved Robert Kraft coming out and doing the Bill was the greatest coach of all time and taking a shot with him. It was a little bit uncomfortable, but it really does feel like we've seen Kraft both trash the not trash, but give a very negative review of the dynasty and then come out and do that and give Bill Belichick a press conference on his way out the door. I think you have to be really trying to look into the actions of the last couple of months and think that there was some serious, irreconcilable personal beef between Robert Kraft and Bill Belichick.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I also do think that when you work like that for 20 years or almost 25 years, right? And not almost 25 years, you work like that for 25 years. And, you have some disagreements and those things can start to bubble over. And especially when you don't get the results that you want. And again, whether it's fair or not, whether it's right or not, like ultimately, Robert was pissed that he went with Belichick instead of Brady. And he was pissed at himself maybe, and he was pissed at Bill. And so and I can't necessarily blame him for that, And so, and again, does that make it right? No. but I do understand, needing to kind of hit a reset. And I'll tell you, Bill Belichick, I thought I will say he was a good sport for being there and taking the jokes, but this is exactly what we all said was going to happen. We all said if he took a year off, he was going to go in the media. He was going to absolutely kill it. Everyone was going to look at him as a new guy, as a personable guy, as a funny guy, as a guy that, becomes one of those, interesting guys. People are like, we want a piece of that. You know what I mean? And next year he walks into that head coaching circuit as the number one overall guy, and everyone's fighting for him. And he has 3 or 4 more, 3, 4, 5 more years, however long he wants to coach for, to try to win, whatever, 18 more games and take over Don Shula and walk out, with a decent team. And I think that to me is where it's headed, and you see it already, right? And I think that's special about him.
See, here's the thing. I still think the best way for this to go for Bill Belichick, ride off into the sunset with the media stuff. Everybody loves his personality. He's a great personality. He's got a wealth of knowledge that he can speak about on a moment's notice. He can talk about anything in the NFL off the top of the dome. He's the ultimate expert guest on this stuff. I almost feel like he's better off just take this career and ride it out. Don't at age 73 go coach the Cowboys to a 10-7 season and 1 playoff win or something, and then go back into retirement. I'd personally like it if he's able to get a really good team and go for it and go get another ring. That's awesome.
Yeah,
Belichick's an older guy. I don't think he needs the wins record to prove that he's the greatest coach to ever do it. And I think he can do a lot of positive stuff for his legacy by spending the next 10 years of his life being the best media guest on the planet for football and just show his face everywhere. And
that's a good point. That is a good point.
If his last legacy is kind of one last gasp at the NFL as a mid-70-year-old man who looks out of touch, that's going to be a lot worse than if he's the guy that a bunch of 6-year-olds and 10-year-olds and 15-year-olds see on the TV on Sports Center and NFL Network and all of these shows talking about football, and who was in all the documentaries that they watch about the sport and things like that. I think I would love for him to go into that role.
Yeah, and that would be really fascinating. I do think, because Old Man Mom mentions it here, like Cowboys, Eagles, 49ers, like if one of those teams, now the Cowboys are a mess because who knows what's going to happen to Dak next year, and they don't have a backup quarterback plan. Not sure what's going to happen to CeeDee Lamb. But like the Niners and the Eagles, those are fascinating teams that are built kind of the way that he likes to build a team. That, that could be a situation, like you said, where if he walks in and can actually compete for another title, then that's different than coaching someone to a 10-7 season just to get the wins record, And so I do think that could be an interesting way to do it. But I totally agree with you. Him being, and it's almost like if you think about it, right? The younger generation, right? If he works in broadcasting for 10 years, let's just say, not that he's going to do that, but let's say he works in broadcasting for 10 years, he becomes that guy for them. And then you don't realize, like, wow, he was a great coach too. It's interesting. Like, he's a guy that I loved listening to on this, And so that could be that next switch for him. That could be really interesting.
Yeah. Well, like I don't know if it'll ever happen, but if, HBO came out and said, we're going to give a show to Nick Saban and Bill Belichick together, and it's going to be, we're going to do 2 shows a week, 2 episodes a week. One's going to be on college football. One's going to be on the NFL, and they're going to talk about it. Like, I don't know if that'll ever happen.
Oh my God.
Something like that, I think, would be a dream come true. I would love to get the pair of them together. Like, I think maybe this is also just partially me being selfish, but Bill Belichick has a lot of knowledge and a lot of smarts about the game of football. And I want that to get passed down. I want that to get recorded. I want that to get put somewhere so that we don't lose some of that to the sands of time. I'd like that all to be documented as thoroughly as we can so we can get his thoughts on everything. Very good at this. He's very smart, and I want to learn as much as I can about what's in that man's head.
That's a great point. By the way, Blorp says Bill on the Manning cast is inevitable. And it said that they actually said that he's going to be on the Manning cast this year. I don't know if he's going to be on every week, but he's going to be on quite a bit. And they already said he's going to be on Pat McAfee. So he's going to be working on Mondays. He's going to be on McAfee and then on the Manning Cast later on. It's going to be great.
I mean, that'll be something to watch when the Patriots schedule comes out, whether it's end of this week or into next week or whenever it's going to be, is when and if do the Patriots have a Monday night game? Because you have to think that they're going to try to get a Manning Cast for that if New England has one. And
how could you not watch that? How could you not watch Bill Belichick, assuming he's on the whole game with Peyton and Eli? How could you not watch Bill Belichick with Peyton and Eli on Monday Night Football? Well, the Patriots are playing? Come on.
And if you think about opponents the Patriots have, like Patriots and Jets makes the most sense for that right off the bat. Patriots Jets have played Monday night games before. That's going to get great ratings, even if the teams aren't very good. And they didn't get one of those last year, so I wouldn't be shocked at all to see mid-October in the Meadowlands Monday night game. We're going to get Bill on the call, and that's something to watch. Also, speaking of schedule, real quick, I think I mentioned this before, but are we going to London? Like, it kind of sounds. Mike Reese had mentioned that, and that was I think a week and a half ago now.
There is a possibility. I do know any trip that they take this year will be a road trip and not a home game trip, but there is a possibility that they could play one of those London games or something like that. I don't think they'll go back to Germany this year, but I wouldn't be surprised to see them go to London this year. The Patriots are a draw. I mean, the Patriots are, I know it's not Tom Brady anymore, but they have a lot of, international recognizability because of what they did for such a long time. So I could certainly see them, being a team that would get something like that. So
I will say Jacoby Brissett versus Trevor Lawrence is not going to get the hype that Drake May versus Trevor Lawrence would get. I'll tell you that.
That is quite true.
If that's like week 7, there is no telling who the quarterback for that game is going to be.
Yeah,
it won't be Nathan Rourke. We know that as of today.
That is quite true. Yep, that is quite true. Not Nathan Rourke. But you know what? I think if you're the Patriots, it almost doesn't matter. And the NFL, I don't think really cares either. It doesn't really matter. Yeah. They don't care who goes over there. It doesn't make a difference to them. They send crappy teams over there all the time, so that doesn't make a difference to them. They almost I feel like they almost prefer the crappy teams overseas to the good teams.
They want bad teams with big markets. That's the.
Yeah, exactly. Right. Exactly. By the way, Jeremy Swayman just popped up on the thing. Jeremy Swayman has allowed 2 goals in the last 2 games. Allowed 2 goals on 67 shots.
He's pretty locked in.
It's not bad.
And I'll weigh in on the Bruins goalie situation for a second. I'm kind of team give Olmark some run in this series just to keep him fresh, keep Swayman fresh, keep them both engaged. But also, if Swayman keeps playing like this, it's very hard to pull him out. You're only pulling him out if he's going to the coaches saying, "Hey, I'm tired."
Right. Correct. Yeah. If he said it's a break, you give him a break. Otherwise, to me, Swayman plays until you're out. That's the way I feel about it. Because
the only other way
hockey, there's nothing like a hot goalie, and if you take him out, you never know.
The only thing I would say is that Olmark was actually the better of the 2 in the regular season against Florida.
True. Yep.
So I think you would consider going Olmark game 2, and then go back to Swayman and just see how.
I just almost feel like just stick with Swayman. Like what are we doing? You know what I mean?
The thing that's nice here is that I have total faith in the coaches because there's no bad option. Like I think I'm not worried no matter who's in net for the Bruins.
Yeah, I agree. I agree with you. So, all right, let's take a break. We're going to come back. We have a new segment, which we're going to be doing, maybe not every week, but maybe every week. We'll see what happens. We got a new segment coming up, so stick around. We have we'll do a little drafting. We started off with some fantasy draft talk. We have to do a little drafting, so we'll talk about that when we come back. Prize Picks has something for every sports fan, from basketball, baseball, and hockey to League of Legends and everything in between. You can pick LeBron, Aaron Judge, Connor McDavid, and Jude Bellingham all in the same entry. Prize Picks even offers injury insurance so that your entries stay in play even if one of your players gets injured. For basketball games, if you have a player who exits the game in the first half and does not return in the second, Prize Picks will have your back and not count that as a loss. Now this week, I'm actually going with Aaron Judge, Rafael Devers, and Bobby Witt Jr. to have over 1.5 total bases, and I'm going with Kevin Durant for more than 28 points and Nikola Jokic with more than 10 rebounds. Download the app today and use the code CLNS for a first deposit match up to $100. Again, if you download the app today and put in the code CLNS, they will match your first deposit up to $100. Prize Picks. Pick more, pick less. It's that easy. All right, we're back. Okay. So, Old Man Mob asked a really good question about the offensive scheme and what the O-line looks like. I like that question a lot. Not tonight. we don't have time for that tonight. Yeah. I do like that question a lot. I think it's something we'll be talking about a lot as we kind of get into the swing of things. But yeah, so he says with the guys, Pats have an okay O-line. What offensive scheme or system would be the best fit for the Pats? I think it's a great question, but I think it's something I don't even want to touch on right now because we could talk about it for literally an hour. And so we're going to table that, but bring that question back later on in the offseason, maybe even next week. Certainly later on in the offseason, we'll be talking about that because I think that's kind of the number one question, right? We don't know what AVP's system is going to look like. Obviously, we think it's going to look something similar to Cleveland, but we're not sure. And so that's certainly a longer discussion than we have right now.
Yeah. So. Before Old Man Mom asked another question here too. Before we move on, just says Zappe staying on the team for camp and then out. That's in response to the news today about Nathan Rourke being cut. I think this is just a numbers thing. You don't have enough throws for 5 quarterbacks. One of Zappe or Rourke was going to get moved or shipped off or cut or whatever before camp because it didn't make sense to bring them all with you.
Yeah.
So they probably just like what they've seen from Zappe more than what they've seen from Rourke, which is a very low bar. And he's QB4 on the depth chart, battling with Milton for a spot on the practice squad or the roster.
Yeah, right. Exactly. Old Man Mom, do not apologize, by the way. It was a great question. It's just something that we just don't have time to answer right now. So,
yeah.
All right. So here's the new segment that we're going to do. We're going to be doing some drafts. We've done this a little bit before. This draft is going to be interesting. I think this might go pretty well. I'm kind of excited about this one. We are doing the best all-time draft classes of the New England Patriots. So the best draft classes of all time. So whatever they came away with in the draft in totality, and what that looked like. And so I think we're going to do. Did you want to do 5 or 4?
Let's do 4. And do we want to snake draft this?
I feel like the snake is the best way to do it, right? Because whoever goes number 1, then the next person gets 2 and 3, right? Which I kind of like,
Yeah.
So I think for this, do you mind going first? How do you?
A lot of pressure.
Why don't you go first, and I'll go, and then I'll go second, and then next week I'll go first and you go second, and then we'll just rotate every week.
Oh, I thought we were doing the whole thing tonight. Oh,
No. I'm saying next week with the whatever draft we do. Next time we do a draft, I'll go first, and then we'll rotate back and forth. No. We're doing the whole draft. You imagine if we made one pick tonight? We're like, oh, this is the first round. Stay tuned for the next 4 weeks.
Like the NFL doing it. We're gonna do it. We're gonna stretch this out over multiple things. Oh my goodness. Yeah, I can go first. I think there's a lot of. I have this narrative. I got a big board here. I got 11 Patriots classes on my board.
I like
so
that.
That's my depth here.
My problem is I have one that I love so much, and I know you're going to take it because anyways, keep going. Well,
here's the thing. I think there are, to me at least, there are 3 different classes that are in contention for this number 1 spot.
Okay.
By a couple different metrics, whether you want to go by, Hall of Famers or impact to Super Bowls or role in different parts of the dynasty, things like that. Of course,
right, yeah.
I think the one, oh man. There's one of these that's so close in my head.
This is why I didn't want the first pick.
Yeah. All right, I'm going to keep it simple. I'm not going to overthink this. We're going with the 2001 Patriots draft class.
Wow. Okay.
Was this not on your list?
It is on my list, just a little further down.
Okay. 2001, and it's pretty simple. You got a Hall of Famer, defensive end, and Richard Seymour with the 6th overall pick, a guy who was a cornerstone player on your defense for 3 Super Bowl wins, and you get Matt Light, a franchise left tackle who is a cornerstone piece in 3 Super Bowl wins. the depth of this draft, isn't the best. Brock Williams, Kenyatta Jones, Leonard Myers,
not great.
Owen Polkman, who has the lowest Pro Football Reference approximate value stat that they have of any player the Patriots have ever drafted. But yeah, the top two in my eyes just carry that in terms of impact to the New England Patriots.
I like that. That's a good one. I'm going to go with a draft in which they also drafted a Hall of Famer in the first round. And that was 1973, where the New England Patriots had not one, not two, but 3 first-round picks. And they drafted only the greatest offensive lineman in NFL history at pick number 4 with John Hannah. They also drafted Sam the Bam Cunningham at pick 11. And then they drafted Darryl Stingley at pick 19. Of course, Stingley, we know had, his injury. Jack Tatum, thanks a lot, buddy. And then in the 14th round, to add on to that, in the 14th round, this went 17 rounds, by the way, in 1973. In the 14th round, Sugar Bear Ray Hamilton. That is 3 Patriots Hall of Famers, 1 Pro Football Hall of Famer, and again, a guy whose career ended tragically that could have been a Patriots Hall of Famer.
That's a great draft. That was in my next tier, but I see the argument. It's funny because neither of these were. That's not the other one that was in contention for me at the top. I'm curious to see what your other one is.
Well, look at that. You never know. All right, so it's hard for me to choose here. It's really difficult for me to choose because on one hand, I'm very partial to one of these drafts, but on the other hand, I feel like the other one is better. Mm-hmm. And so I'm just going to do it. I'm going to go with the 1995 Patriots draft, where they drafted Ty Law, Pro Football Hall of Famer, in the first round. Ted Johnson, known Patriots hater and CTE haver, in the second round. And then Curtis Martin, Pro Football Hall of Famer, and one of the greatest running backs of all time, in the third round. They also drafted Dave Wohlabaugh, Jimmy Hitchcock, who was part of that 0-1 team that won the Super Bowl. And so, a pretty solid draft class. Of course, the top 3, and really it's just Ty Law and Curtis Martin, but they're both Hall of Famers. You don't draft 2 Pro Football Hall of Famers in the same draft very often. And obviously, Martin, the majority of his career was spent in New York, but he still counts as a great draft pick there.
Yeah, no, that was also up there for me. That was not my third.
Well, look at this.
Fantastic draft, and
you're gonna get all 3 of your top tier drafts then.
I'm gonna get my number 2 right here.
Love it.
And I was really surprised this wasn't higher for you. Give me the 2010 Patriots draft class.
Yeah.
Devin McCourty, Rob Gronkowski, Aaron Hernandez, Jermaine Cunningham was in this one. Brandon Spikes, the legend Zoltan Mesko himself.
Yep.
Go Blue, Michigan legend right there. That was the draft that launched the second wave of the Patriots dynasty.
It's a great draft.
Yeah.
It's a great draft.
And it's, Gronk is going to be a Hall of Famer. Devin McCourty is a Patriots Hall of Famer. He's not going to be a Pro Football Hall of Famer, I don't think, which I think is a shame because I think he's that caliber of player. He just
I agree. Yeah.
Doesn't have the accolades for it. Aaron Hernandez, obviously a Hall of Fame caliber player when he was on the field.
Yeah.
We don't need to get much deeper into that.
No. Roast did a nice job of doing that last night.
yes, they did. And then a couple other players who were big parts of, Brandon Dederick in there, who's a nice role player for them at points. You got obviously the legend, Ohio legend, Taylor Price.
Yeah.
With his 5 receptions for 80 yards in his career.
So bad.
And Zach Robinson was in that draft class as well.
Yep.
It's
good.
Yeah. So that's a fantastic one. Now this is where I got a couple options of where I can go with this one. There's one in here I'm really curious when it's going to come off the board. But I'm going to go I'm gonna go with the 1995. Oh wait, no, sorry, 96 draft.
1996.
Yeah.
Okay.
This one, yeah,
Yep.
96.
It's a good
Terry
one.
Glenn with the first pick. Obviously, there were those issues there, but he was a very good player.
Yep.
Lawyer Malloy is your second pick.
Mhm.
Teddy Bruschi is your third pick.
Yep.
You really didn't get a whole lot else from anybody else on that list, but Lawyer Malloy and Teddy Bruschi are instrumental players in launching the dynasty. And your first three picks are all very, very, very good players there on the field. So
I like
feel
that.
very comfortable
That's a
with that.
good one. That's a really good one. That was one that I had considered actually instead of 95. But I ended up not being able to pull the trigger on that one, and so I didn't.
It's a great. It's also the Patriots made like 14 picks in this draft or something like that. It was ridiculous, and
Yeah.
eight or nine of them were on offense. That's the last draft where the Patriots took more offensive players than this year's class.
Yeah, and some of those guys obviously didn't work out. Lovett
No.
Purnell and J.R. Conrad and guys like that. But Heath Irwin played for a bit. Chris Sullivan was a D tackle, a D end. I'm sorry, that played for a bit. Like there were guys that played for a while. So, so that was good.
It's just like none of the offensive guys
I
did
know.
anything.
No, except for Terry Glenn.
John Elmore, Chris Griffin, Mario Greer.
Yeah,
they
all
not
stuck.
Much going on there. But the defensive players at the top were the key pieces there.
And that's what it comes down to, right? So, okay. All right, I got some work to do. That was good. And old man, I love how old man Mob was like, Matt better swing big, and then he's like, Pat better hit a home run here because Matt came back with good picks, and he did. So okay, here we go. So I have 2 picks left, right? Just four picks.
Yeah.
All right, I'm gonna go with the 1993 Patriots draft. The 1993 Patriots draft, of course, they had the number 1 overall pick, took Drew Bledsoe, number 1. Mm-hmm. At pick 31, took Chris Slade. Todd Rucci, who played for quite a while, was on there. Vincent Brisby, who was a wide receiver for the Patriots for quite a while, played well. Missing Sisson in that group as well. Missing Scott Sisson. And, of course, 8th round in 1993, Troy Brown as well. So Drew Bledsoe, Chris Slade, Troy Brown. It's a pretty solid bunch. Again, 2 Patriots Hall of Famers. By the way, I was corrected by the Patriots Hall of Fame employee, my dad, who corrected me that said Sugar Bear is not in the Patriots Hall of Fame, but nevertheless, a very good player for
that. Actually shocked me. I could have sworn he is. I
know. But he knows better than I do. That's for sure. So, at least in this case. Yeah. So yes, 1993 is my pick there. And again, Rucci played for a bit. Like these guys, role players a little bit. Corwin Brown played for a bit. So that's an interesting one as well. So 1993 draft. And for my final pick, oh man, am I gonna do it? I feel like I have to do it. I mean, it's got to be the 2000 NFL draft. I mean, they got absolutely.
I was curious when that was. I was curious when this was going to come off the board.
In that draft, Adrian Clem, bum, J.R. Redmond. Although J.R. Redmond with like 2 of the most important receptions in Patriots history. And so yes, that was pretty good. Greg Robinson Randall, who started for the Patriots in Super Bowl 36. Mm-hmm. Not bad. Antoine Harris scored a touchdown in that run. Those guys all sucked. Right?
And Antoine Harris had a touchdown, and it wasn't forced, but I think he picked up a fumble in the Super Bowl.
He did. You're right. Yep. And Patrick Pass, of course, played, drafted in the 7th round there. But of course, it's all about pick 199 and Tom Brady. Yeah. The rest of the class kind of stinks, but you got the greatest player of all time. So, it was a pretty good draft.
Yeah, this draft was on my list, and it was just I had no idea where this was going to come off the board,
right?
Because you got a couple guys who were role players, but it's just how much does the one player outweigh it? And I think this is a good spot for it. I got a couple options here for the last pick.
Okay,
so I'm gonna talk you through some of the ones I'm not going to pick before.
Yes, let's do that because that'll be fun to talk about that.
So some of the other ones on my list, I'm going to go way back first. You got 1977, Raymond Claiborne, Stanley Morgan. Great class there. Patriots legends. 2002 is not going to be the pick here. Daniel Graham, Deion Branch, Jarvis Green, David Givens, all in that one.
Yep.
2009 is another one with three guys here: Patrick Chung, Sebastian Vollmer, and Julian Edelman. I think that's another great one. Not going to be it for me. The one I'm going to pick, I'm going with the 2003 Patriots draft class.
2003.
Not a lot of elite level players, but you get a lot of guys who were super solid for them, and it's the depth here for me. Ty Warren, who's very good for a while. Eugene Wilson, who's not the best member of that secondary, but he was the free safety that allowed those other pieces to fit where they did. You can't make the move with Lawyer Malloy and allowing Rodney Harrison to play the way he did without having a true free safety to play the way Eugene Wilson did. He made some key plays for them at points. I threw Dan Klecko's name in here from that. I just love Dan Klecko, fullback Dan Klecko. Asante Samuel, obviously not New England's favorite anymore, but a guy who was obviously a huge part of the 2007 season for the way it ended, but he was spectacular in coverage that year. A guy forced turnover after turnover in his career. I think he had a pick six against the Jets as a rookie. It's been like week 3 or whatever, the home opener. He was really big for them. Dan Copen, rock solid center for them for a while. Tully Bantakane, special teamer, designated pass rusher. He got it done for you. Bethel Johnson, not that great of a player, but he had his moments on special teams with the kick returns, touchdowns,
and head coach Cliff Kingsbury.
Yes, Cliff Kingsbury in that too. So, I don't think you're going to get any Hall of Famers from that group, but you just got super, super solid players at a whole bunch of spots for you.
Yeah, I like it. All right,
Any
listen, we got
you were considering.
Yes, we have to take a quick break. After we do that, I want to discuss some of these kind of fringe ones, or honorable mentions, we'll say. Yeah. Okay, so we'll take a quick break. We'll be right back. The Celtics are in the playoffs, and there's nothing like the atmosphere of the Garden during a Celtics game. And the easiest way to get in the building is by using the Game Time app. The prices on Game Time actually go down the closer it gets to tip-off. Now, one of the nice things about Game Time is that they have all-in pricing, which means you see the fees up front. They're not hitting you with fees after you've already paid or as you get to the payout screen. They're giving them to you up front so you know exactly what you're paying. They also have the lowest price guarantee. If you find a price lower, they will credit you 110% of the difference. And they give you a seat view before you purchase anything. You can even move your phone around and see how it looks. So take the guesswork out of buying NBA tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the code CLNS for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem the code CLNS for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed. All right, so a few more honorable mentions here. One of them, 2012, where they drafted both Hightower and Chandler Jones. They also grabbed who else I think about? Tavon Wilson in that draft as well. Alfonso Denard, who was pretty good. Nate Ebner, who was a solid special teams guy for them for quite a while. So some solid players in that draft. Again, you have guys that were really good at the top, and then a few other guys that you kind of sprinkle in here and there. I thought 2013, again, maybe the top of the class, not great. But Jamie Collins, Logan Ryan, Deron Harmon, it's pretty solid. Maybe not the best, but pretty solid. And Aaron Dobson, gets hurt, and so he's not the guy that maybe we thought he could be. And then I went all the way back to 1976 as well. 76, they had 3 first-round picks as well. I don't know how the hell they did first-round picks back in the day, but in 73 they had 3 first-round picks, right? In 76 they had 3 first-round picks. In 77 they had 2 first-round picks. They just stockpiled first-round picks. In 1980 they had 2 first-round picks, and they sucked every year anyways. But in 76 they drafted Mike Haynes, Pete Brock, and Tim Fox all in the first round, and so pretty solid. And again, maybe not the greatest players of all time, but pretty good, right? And so, and you mentioned 77 already, and I feel like there was one. Oh, got to mention 1991. 1991, Ben Coates, and
Yes.
also, of course, our guy Scott Zolak. I mean, come on, how could you forget Scott
Yes.
Zolak?
And two
In there as
first
well.
rounders in that one.
Yep.
Harlow and Leonard Russell.
Yeah, neither great, neither very good. Fine, but not very good.
Yeah. There's
So,
another one I wanted to shout out too. Where is it? Is it the 98 one? Yeah, it's the 98 one. Robert Edwards, whose career cut short, but he was a fantastic player when he was. I got my Robert Edwards jersey in my closet.
Love it.
To Bucky Jones, who was a very useful player for them at points. Greg Spires in that class.
Yep.
But I just want to give Robert Edwards a shout out. I'll give him a shout out any opportunity I get. And 99, you get Damian Woody and Kevin Falk out of it.
Yeah, I was going to say that's one of the ones that I had on my list as well that I thought was interesting because, you get those two guys in it, and and I think that's again, not that it's amazing, but it's pretty good, right? And 71, I also had on the list 71 with Jim Plunkett and Julius Adams in the first and second round. So again, solid, right? And so that's kind of where you look at it. And Obey Mob asked a question about what was the worst Patriots draft of all time. The problem with the worst Patriots draft of all time is that there were some really, really bad ones early on. I would say you almost have to kind of look at the last 20 years if you're going to say the worst ones of all time. But I think, TJ makes a case about the 2022 draft. That's pretty bad. It looks pretty awful right now. Of course, Marcus Jones playing well for the Patriots. We'll see if he can stay healthy this year. But if Cole Strange doesn't pan out and Marcus Jones just ends up like pretty good and not great, that could be one of the worst draft classes of all time. And so, it's just, I don't know. We'll see.
Yeah. And it's also tough because there's a lot of drafts in here that are bad, but have like one really good player in them, and it's just tough to evaluate. How do we compare one draft with a good player and 7 bad picks, and a draft with a slightly better player and 8 bad picks? Like I don't know how to parse that.
Yeah, and so Nagan is over here bad mouthing a lot of things. He doesn't like the fact that I picked the 2000 NFL draft because Patriots got lucky with Tom Brady. It wasn't scouting; they just got lucky, which is fine. And then he also says, here's the quote of the night right here. There's the comment of the night. Nagan, you win. Comment of the night. Now you got 2 guys, which looks like Milton will be better. He's talking about, of course, Drake May and Milton. He said that you could have had Marvin Harrison and Joe Milton, and instead, you drafted Drake May, who's going to stink, and Joe Milton's going to be better than him, which is just a completely insane statement to make.
If you're drafting Joe Milton, you need to be picking Xavier Worthy as your receiver to have somebody who have any chance of catching throws down the field. Joe Milton. We'll see how this breaks out. I would not be surprised if Joe Milton does not end up making this team.
No, and again, there's a world where I can see where Joe Milton could end up being a decent quarterback. Yeah. I don't think there's a world in which Joe Milton is going to walk into camp and outperform Drake May. I just think that's wild. I just think that's a wild take. And again,
especially considering that Joe Milton's best season ever in his 6th year in college was less productive than any season Drake May had in 2 seasons as a starter in college.
Right. And again, when I just go back to my friends that live in Tennessee, and I was considering, I think I said this when they drafted Joe Milton. I was considering putting him in a mock draft, just a mock draft, nothing else, just a mock draft. Hey, at the end of the draft, I'm thinking about them taking Joe Milton in like the 6th round or something like that. And my buddy lives in Tennessee, and he's a huge Vols fan, and he was like, "Do not, under any circumstances, wish that your team takes Joe Milton to be their number 1 quarterback." And I'm like, "Oh, okay, I guess he's bad then." He's like, "He's worse than bad. He's worse than you could ever imagine." And I was like, "Oh, okay, all right. Well, then there you go." So, and it's one of those, and listen, that doesn't mean that Drake May is going to pan out, right? Drake May could still stink. But I think what we're looking at here is that there isn't a world in which Joe Milton was a better prospect than Drake May, or Joe Milton has more upside than Drake. It just doesn't exist. And again, they're both projects to a certain extent. Drake May got taken number 3, and if he didn't get taken number 3, there were going to be 14 teams that traded up to him to get him at number 4. So that's how high people were on Drake May. Joe Milton went in the 6th round. No one wanted him.
Yeah.
right? So like,
and obviously we've seen quarterbacks, they get taken in the 6th round to be good here in New England before.
right.
Joe Milton is not Tom Brady. He
Yeah,
doesn't have the production experience. He doesn't, there's nothing in his past that suggests, like, obviously Brady, was a bad evaluation, everything, and there's a lot of things around that. But if you go back and watch, like, he was a good player when he played. He just
correct.
was in a weird situation. He didn't get to start until later. He wasn't recruited big time out of high school, so his opportunities came later, and he was physically underdeveloped. But he had all of
Right.
the mental abilities. He could do everything. It was just, we need to get you to go from college speed to NFL speed. We need to bulk up your body. We need to make you physically ready for the NFL. Joe Milton's had an NFL body since, he was a freshman at Michigan.
Right.
It's the other stuff that hasn't developed in 6 years in college. And I think that's the issue. And it could still develop. But in hindsight, you look at this draft and taking Joe Milton with, Christian Boyd still on the board, Dylan Laube still on the board, 3 kickers went later in the round. And that's still something the Patriots are trying to address, so that they brought in Sly, the kicker. Christian
Yeah.
Mahogany was still on the board, a guy that I liked. Ryan Flournoy, a receiver who I know people were fans of him. I still confuses me a little bit, if I'm honest.
Yeah. Yeah. And look, we talk about guys that made it later on, right? Who made it later on in the draft, right? We talk about guys that you're like, okay, Brock Purdy is a guy that got drafted in the 7th round, Mr. Irrelevant, right? Who turns out to be a pretty good quarterback. What does he have, right? What does he have? He didn't have those physical attributes. He slipped in the draft because he didn't have a great arm. He wasn't super mobile, right? And so he slips in the draft because, like, well, he's just a guy. Well, it turns out he knows what he's doing. He's actually really good at football, right? Tom Brady, same thing. His measurables were terrible, right? And so that's one of those things where you look at it and say, hey, his measurables sucked, right? But he could play football. Those are the late round guys that hit. The late round guys that hit are not the guys that are, oh my God, physically, he's incredible, but he can't play quarterback. Those guys don't hit. That doesn't happen, right? And maybe Joe Milton will be the exception, right? And Nagan, I know. You can hate Drake May, and that's okay. There's nothing wrong with hating Drake May. You can think Drake May is not going to hit. That's okay. You can believe that. But just because you think Drake May isn't going to hit doesn't mean that Joe Milton is going to hit.
Well,
The far more likely probability is that neither of them are going to hit, right? If Drake May doesn't hit, neither of them are going to hit. And, I think there's a significantly better chance that Drake May hits and Joe Milton doesn't. That to me is the number one option, is that Drake May is good, right? Is that Drake May is good and Joe Milton isn't, right? The second option to me is that Drake May isn't good and Joe Milton isn't. And the third option is that Drake May isn't good and Joe Milton is. Seems incredibly unlikely, but it's possible.
Yeah.
So,
and obviously, we'll see what happens when we get to camp. But I've said my piece on Joe Milton.
Yep. Agreed. So, all right. I think that's it. We got anything else?
I don't have anything else.
I don't think so. This is fun. This is fun.
Yeah. I'll have to do more of these.
Oh my God, it's so good. That's so good. Anyways, Matt Porter just tweeted out something hysterical. I'm gonna text it to you. It's outrageous. But anyways, so we'll be back Monday. So here's the deal. Monday. Monday. Jeez, today's Monday.
Say, changing the schedule again, Pat.
Jesus Christ. Wednesday. Different time Wednesday. Wednesday, 7 p.m. on Wednesday. Okay. 7 p.m. on Wednesday. We're going to have Thor Nystrom from Fantasy Pros on. Thor has done the draft recap with us the last few years. We had a miscommunication at the end of last week on Thursday. He's coming on Wednesday. Again, it's an earlier time, 7 o'clock. We'll tweet it out, let you guys know the whole thing. But he's coming on Wednesday at 7. We're going to talk about him. He did give the Patriots an F in the draft, and so we'll talk about that. And so I'm excited about it. I'm excited about it. I love talking to Thor. He's a great guy. He's one of the most unique guys because he looks at things in a very different way, I think. And so, so we'll see. But anyways, that's Wednesday. Thank you for the chat. Appreciate you guys coming through as always. It's always a ton of fun. So thank you.
Yeah.
And
Go
Bruins and Celtics and Bruins and then Celtics and then Bruins again and then Celtics again. It's gonna be
Red
be great.
Sox in there as well. And you know what? Shout out another team, PWHL Boston, the women's hockey team in Boston. They're in the playoffs. They're playing Montreal in the first round. It's best of 5 series. And I believe those games are the 9th. It's either the 8th and the 10th or the 9th and the 11th. I don't remember.
Okay.
I'm pretty sure you can find them for free on YouTube. I think they just stream them there. So
I like that.
Yeah. So if we can support a couple of Boston hockey teams here in the playoffs.
Let's do it. I like that quite a bit. So, all right. Well, thank you. And we will talk to you guys Wednesday at 7, not Monday, Wednesday at 7 o'clock. Take care, guys.